Creating content attracts money. Creating content attracts money, even if it is someone else's product, but just rebranded with your name on it. For example, Jordans. Michael Jordan made the shoes. They're just Nike shoes, right? But with his name on it. And we spent hundreds of dollars or hundreds of pounds on them. I mean, I used to be a bit of a sneakerhead myself, so I did spend money on Jordan, so I know firsthand how expensive they can be.
Yeah. Okay, so the fact of creating content, touching base on the last episode of what we did is building in public. If you haven't heard, listened, or watched it, go back and check this episode out, because it's important to see the pros and cons of building in public, what it brings to you, what it does, and eventually the ultimate question you have to ask yourself about privacy and if you have to be concerned about it. But yeah, creating content, and I think let me pull up some examples. One of them is Logan Paul. To be just in the YouTube space. But then if you say, I don't want to be a YouTuber, I don't want to be an Instagrammer whatsoever, it doesn't have to be like that. I have put out some other people that are in business, that are creating content, so you understand the concept of creating content versus being an influencer. Because ultimately what people think of creating content is, I want to be a social media influencer, which is not the case. Let's bring up Logan Paul. He started a YouTube channel. Now he has a $1 million company which is selling merch and his memberships, the Maverick Club. Yes, he is an influencer, and yes, he is absolutely out and about and having a lot of parties and whatnot. But let's bring in some other business people in. For example, Syed Balki. He started blogging. His blog is not so. His blog is WP Beginner, WordPress Beginner, and all he did was talking about WordPress, how to optimize blogs, how to write blogs, how to use blogs to make money, etc. Basically, how he made the money was affiliate marketing. He got so much traction that he started to create coding, like codes and applications for WordPress, and sell those WordPress applications to his audience who are reading his blogs. All those people I mentioned, I will have a link down in the description so you can take a look at themselves, yourself, just to see what
everyone
they do.
we mentioned today,
Yes.
and also everyone that we've mentioned so far, and everyone that we will mention
Yes.
during this episode will all be in the show notes as well, so you can go and research them. And Niclas knows a lot more about it than me. For example, Saeed, I've never heard of this guy before, to be honest with you. In fact, actually, I think that I heard about him maybe on another podcast, but I haven't done a lot of research. And Logan Paul, everyone knows about him. But I think that what we're looking at here is essentially creating content or creating value to potential customers and generally the public. We're creating value here for free initially. And what that does is it's building goodwill. And when you're building goodwill, and you know what, people say, like, if you give first, it's more likely that other people are going to come and give back to you, right? And it will come and be reciprocated back to you. So essentially, that's what we're doing here, is that we're giving out first for free, no cost to it, some value, some whatever the industry may be. It may even be comedy. And the value there is laughter, right? And having a little bit of fun. And once you bring out that little bit of goodwill, that value that you first put out into the world, and then the world will come back to you and say, we like what you're doing, we want more of it. And then you can associate yourself with other brands if you want to, create your own brand if you want to, create your own sort of revenue streams off the back of that, essentially.
This is where it comes down to. If you want to create wealth in your life, creating content is the way to go. I was yesterday Yeah, yesterday was Friday. Yesterday I was talking to my assistant, and we were talking about content creation and whatnot. That is, not a lot of people do content creation. And to give you a number, what do you mean? What do you think of the percentage of people who create content on Earth?
I think that pretty much everyone does. I mean, everyone that's got access to smartphones and the internet. I think we're all creating content. We're either creating content where it's like, yeah, we're getting drunk with our friends, and here's a picture of XYZ that we like. I mean, everyone had their own personal whatever, MySpace, Facebook, and whatnot, and to a certain extent, yeah, that is still creating content, right? But
Yeah,
when
let me rephrase. What do you think of the percentage of people on planet Earth is creating content for the public? Let's put it that way.
Well, as in basically like creating content to put value out there for
Yeah.
other people.
Yes.
I would think that this is actually shockingly low. I would assume that this is maybe 10%. I don't know.
Do you want to know the number?
Yeah, go on then. Go on. Stop key.
Okay,
Go on.
so only 2% of people create content for the public.
Wow. 2%.
2%. That equals
2%.
200 million people on planet Earth create content for the public as a servant.
Wow. And I assume that that out of that 2%, I would assume, or out of the 200 million, I would assume around about 20% of those people actually do make money out of it, or do it in a consistent way that attracts money and attracts customers.
Probably, yeah. Unfortunately, there is no number to it. I haven't found any number for monetization of those 200 million people who create content for the public. But yeah, content creators who build or create content for the public is only 2%, 200 million people.
Well, the reason why I say 20% is, I mean, you probably would have guessed, is that it is the 80-20 rule, right?
Maybe.
And should we briefly touch on that if people haven't heard about what that is?
Yeah, just go ahead and explain what the 80-20 rule is.
So what that essentially means is that 80% of the results come from 20% of the input. And what you can also see is that 80% of the wealth in the world is held by thereabouts 20% of the people. And 80% of the value created is made by 20% of the people. But basically, that's what it is. I mean, we can put a little note in the show notes as well, and then you guys can look it up if you want. We potentially could do an episode on that in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But just to briefly explain, you're essentially saying that a small proportion of the input is worth a larger proportion of the output, and then the rest of the output is come from. I mean, you know what they say, isn't it? Like you can generally learn most of a certain industry in a short amount of time, but then the last part's a specialized part take you a long time.
Definitely. I mean, you guys should definitely check this out. Maybe if you can
use it to actually.
Do you have a resource? Do you have a resource page that we can link to? Give a link down below, so that people can read into it in the 80-20 rule.
I think I even did one on my. So I actually have a podcast that I've been running for a couple of years since before this one started, and I'm sure I had an episode on that. So if I do, I will link that in.
Yeah. If you have it, just we put a link down below just for reference points. Another example, because this guy hands down inspired me the most, to be honest. The entire automotive scene I'm in got pretty much influenced by him. And his name is Riglin. He's from Scotland, I think, or he's from the UK or so. I'm not quite sure where he's from, but I know it's from that island. But he started being a photographer.
Oh, hold on. I've just found out that he's actually from... he's very local to me, put it that way. But here it says, okay, so he's born in 94, so he's also just... he's not only very local to me, but he's also a very similar age to me. which is quite shocking actually.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. But yeah, go on.
So
Let's
yeah,
hear about
so
Jacob.
with age of 19, he started to become like a photographer. He took photos of landscape photography and just felt the need of creating different shots of already existing popular shots. For those who are not into photography, as a photographer, I do automotive photography, and you always have a specific shot everyone knows. But what he is referring to is everyone knows this particular shot from this particular angle, but he wanted to create the same shot in a different perspective that nobody else has seen before. And that was his driver to make a change. However, he got into automotive and travel photography with his girlfriend, which ultimately led to where he is now, because now he gets to drive Rolls-Royce, Lamborghinis, Ferraris. He gets called by what was this thing? Lamborghini, yeah. Lamborghini called him up and said, "Hey, we need content for this for the new Euros. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how to pronounce
The
it.
4x4 Lambo, basically.
Yeah, the SUV, yeah. And
yeah, SUV, yeah.
they called him and asked him, "Hey, can you fly to us and can you take pictures and videos of it, commercial stuff?" And they paid for travel. They paid for obviously the stay. And not only that, but then he also made a deal with the hotel he was staying in to produce content for them as well. So he actually made more money with making money. It's crazy, but it's basically he's doing his passion.
That is crazy.
He's making from the stay of the hotel because he was staying, like selling his creative mind to them, and then he was also making the money because of the Lamborghini project. So as you can tell, just because you create content for people, businesses value content. So if you create content,
definitely.
it definitely attracts opportunities to you, so you can make money from it.
100%. And I think that a lot more businesses are starting to realize this, and hence why they're actually reaching out to content creators.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably some of your favorite content creators, you've realized that actually now that they're like promoting certain products or brands, and that isn't by accident. Those brands have realized that this guy or girl who's making such content, has, I mean, it's bigger than TV really, and it's bigger than radio, and it's much better than also paying for adverts as well. Because if you imagine, if I can go, if I'm a large business, instead of spending hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars into an advertising campaign on TV, on Google Ads and all such things, which is basically by chance, you're essentially saying, look at this, and by chance you might click through and then funnel through. And again, you can look at it and you can potentially say, like, the percentage of people that actually click through on that Google advert and then click through onto the website is quite low. And then once they're on the website, then to actually click buy is even lower. But when you've got someone who's created content, has a clear audience of maybe millions, even hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of people, there's a clear audience. There's already, all of the barriers to entry are really low. So the turnover, the percentage turnover, the conversion percentage is going to be much higher through hiring a content creator to market your product rather than marketing it yourself online or through TV or Google adverts or adverts on other websites and things like that. And companies are realizing this, and that's why they're coming out and they're saying to Jacob Riglin, come and drive a Lambo or whatnot, take some photos of Lambos, because he's already probably got a clear audience, which are like, and a lot of them are probably diehard fans, right?
Yeah, and that's like I said, and this is one of the people that inspire me the most to get into content creation, just because it opens up opportunities you were only dreaming about, and then all of a sudden it becomes real. Also, a great example. You do have TikTok. Are you familiar with the Mac guy who is always asking, "Hey, what do you do for a living?"
Oh yeah, yeah. I think everyone knows that guy now.
Prime example. He's creating content by asking people what they do for a living because they can afford a hypercar. And then now he's driving Lambos. Now he's driving Bugattis. Now he's driving a freaking. He was even sitting in an F1 car when F1
Yeah.
was in Laguna Seca in California. He was able to sit inside a F1 car. Who does that? Like, who can do that?
I mean, if you think about it, if you were to say, okay, my goal is to go and sit in an F1 car, whether it's to drive it or just sit in it, and to go about doing that and dedicate, you'll probably have to dedicate a significant amount of time to try and get to that point. However, just by creating content, say for 5 years, I mean, really, we're not here to get rich quick, and getting rich quick is not necessarily sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So, this is almost like a shortcut, even though it's still not short. But instead of spending like 20 years going towards something like that, you could do it in 5.
Yeah.
Or even less, potentially, if you go viral. And it's very within your capability to go viral or to get hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of views. I know, Nicholas, you had on one of your videos had over 200k views, right?
We are, by the way, now at 550,000. So we crossed the 500,000.
There we go. Congratulations. And that is, and I mean, like, your other videos on that same channel maybe didn't even get 10k, or I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong,
not even,
but then 1 or 2, but yeah, and then that one just absolutely popped off.
Yes.
And it could just be that one where the one out of those 500,000 people is going to look at that and be like, I want this guy on my team.
Yes.
He'll look at it, he'll go back onto your profile, he'll be like, wow, this guy's consistently, and that's the key word, consistently created content for X amount of time.
Yeah.
Every so often, you know?
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, okay, so first of all, he's got consistency, which is huge, and it shows commitment and all sorts of things, and all sorts of good things, right? And it's highly likely that someone would then reach out to you and say, you know, I like what you do. Can you come work for me? Or can you do X, Y, Z for me? And it's exactly what's happened to Jacob Riglin. I like what you do. Come drive a Lambo. Come stay in my hotel.
Yeah. And that's just what I want to pass on, because if you don't know what to do, get into content creation. Content creation will bring you anything you can dream of. You just have to define what you want at that point. But create content. If you really don't know what to do in your life, create content. It doesn't matter.
So I'm assuming that there's going to be people out there. Sorry, I cut you up there. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I'm assuming that there's going to be people out there that are like, but Monsui, but Niclas, what sort of content should I create?
That's a good point.
What would we say to those people?
That's a good point. And the truth is, I cannot speak for you. It depends. It really depends. And me as a marketer, this is our favorite word. It depends, because it really does.
Of course.
Depend.
How much is your fee? It depends. How much money have you got in the bank?
It depends. No. So what I would answer if you ask me what should I do in terms of creating content, there are a few options. First off, go back to the other podcast episode, because we talk about building in public. Twitter is a very good way, and I explain the way how you get there on the podcast. Second, if you don't know how to create content, you need to define first what is the easiest form of creating content for you. Some people love video, some people love audio, some people love writing.
Some people like photos.
Some people like photos, drawing, whatever it is that suits you the best to start. And this is the key here. You need to get started first, and need to build the habit of habits. Create the habit of being consistent with it, and then you can expand in different avenues. So if you don't know which one you want to choose, try out all of them. Try out video, try out audio, try to write blogs. And I can give you a prime example of myself. I started a blog post. My website is niklasharitos.com. If you go in there, you see an archive. I started the blog 2018, I think 2018. I have not been consistent because I hate writing. I tried to give it a shot and I give it a shot. Now I'm back at it again and try to be consistent with it again because I know in terms of marketing, writing is the most important aspect of creating conversions. But I found out that I prefer video over anything else. First, because I can evaluate better and quicker of how well I did or how terrible I did, and then I can improve upon it. With text or with writing, I can't do this really. I see, yes, Grammarly helps me to fix grammar and stuff, but it doesn't help me to see, is the storytelling well? I cannot be as critical as I am with video. I guess that's what my preference is. Some people prefer audio. They love podcasts. That's a great example with this next one I have on the list. Joe Rogan. He's a great communicator. He loves talking. He starts in stand-up comedy. He then went into UFC commentator.
Yeah, because I think martial arts, so Joe Rogan I know a little bit more about than some of the other people we've spoken about. But yeah, I understand that martial arts actually really helped him, basically mentally helped him. So then, he went really deep into it. And I mean, if you look at some of the videos of him when he was younger and he was doing martial arts, you don't want to mess with this guy, I tell you that much. Some of watch a video if you like, I don't know if you've seen like his kicks and stuff, which are really like, just looks like if you got kicked by him, you'll be going flying across the room.
I gotta.
Before we get a little bit more into Joe Rogan, I want to give some more tips to people who are struggling potentially to think about what they want to do. Now, firstly, you've got to realize that indecision kills. You just got to get started and stay consistent with something and try. This is what life is about, right? How the hell are you going to know if X is good for you if you're not going to try A to Z?
Yeah.
And you have to try all of these different things. You have to. And, the times when people would say, oh, at 16 years old or 14 years old, you're supposed to decide what you want to do in life and then go ahead and do it and dedicate 40 years to it. Nah, screw that. Try as many different things as you possibly can and then figure out what the best thing is. And I would also encourage people to you want to get rid of the distractions, get a blank sheet of paper out, write the question at the top or in the middle or somewhere. What do I want to create content about? And brainstorm at least 20 items. And you'll come to me and you'll say to me, Monsui, I can't even think of 20 items. And I can't even think of 20 items right now either that I would want to create content on. But by doing this exercise, you may get stuck after 5, 6, 7, 10. But by forcing yourself to go out to 20, it makes you think outside the box and it makes you think of solutions. And this technique you can do for anything, any problem you have. You force yourself to write a large number of solutions to a problem which you can't conceive right now.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, you force yourself to think outside the box, then you can review those and you test and you say, okay, let's make 5 different Instagram accounts, for example, and let's just post once a week on cars, if you like cars, music, if you like music, and you do it for each of these, tech, if you like tech, walking, there's so many things out there, running, exercise, nature, anything, there's literally anything, whatever you like, whatever you find value out of, you enjoy, it's highly likely that there's an entire group out of people that are exactly the same and they love that stuff.
Yes.
And they want to see it from you and they want you to be telling them about it. Look, I'm an Apple user, yeah, and I love to watch videos online telling me how to basically affirm that the purchase that I just made was great or whatever, or even if it wasn't great. Sometimes I'm like, why shouldn't I do X, Y, Z, even though I've already bought it? Like, for example, if I just bought a MacBook so I haven't bought the new iPhone 14, but if I were to buy it, then maybe I might Google why shouldn't you buy the iPhone 14 and why should you buy the iPhone 14? And who's creating that content? Is it you?
Yeah, that's the right question to ask. And if you want to know more, just to get this out of the way too, if you want to learn more or read more about what my personal take on is consumption versus content creation, I wrote a blog post that just got published yesterday. So if you want to check it out, link is also down in the
Yeah,
description.
we'll link it below. Anyway, on to Joe Rogan.
Yes, Joe Rogan. And then from this UFC commentator gig, what he did for multiple years. I don't know. Do you know how long he did this?
Oh, I think he still does it, doesn't he?
No, he's not there anymore.
No?
Now
He stopped?
he's fully on
Really?
podcast. Yeah, he's fully on the podcast now.
He doesn't do UFC at all anymore.
I don't think so. No, as
I
far
don't
as
know. I think that he did it for quite some time. I remember. I think he was literally one of the first people when UFC first came out.
yeah, he was one of
I
the
think he
the
was,
starter
wasn't he?
points, I think. But yeah, from the UFC, he went back to comedy. He said, okay, I don't want to do UFC or whatever. So he took a break. He learned comedy now, or went back to comedy, and now he's fully committed to podcasts. I'm not sure if he's still doing UFC though. Might be. But yeah, he's now.
Apparently here, and this is just a quick Google. Apparently it was only 2 years, but that doesn't sound right. Anyway, if you're really interested, I'm sure you can go out and Google it.
Yeah, we have an article down for Joe Rogan, so if you just want to click it.
Yeah, which is all linked again.
Yeah, and then he's fully committed on podcasts. And from the podcast, I'm not sure if you were aware of the switch from Apple Podcasts, from Spotify to somewhere else, or he went.
He's
to
not
Spotify.
on Apple, is he, or something?
He was somewhere, and then Spotify. Something was with Spotify, and then he got an offer for 100 million or something to host it on Spotify. I think it was.
Yeah, I think that he's only on Spotify actually, or he's basically signed a deal with Spotify.
Yeah.
Because if you look at this, man. Joe Rogan was doing podcasts before podcasts were even a known word, pretty much.
Yes.
And if you look at it on that way, and he's created that value, he's put that goodwill out into the world for so long, consistently.
Yeah.
He's consistently doing it. Now he's meeting people like Elon Musk. That's crazy. An ordinary man is meeting billionaires, basically.
Yeah.
And all sorts of people. I mean, you can just look at his podcast. He's met so many different people. And so now Spotify have realized, wow, this guy's got millions of basically fans, right?
Yeah.
So if we sign a deal and we pay Joe Rogan millions or whatever it is, and we say, Joe Rogan, we're going to pay you X amount every year or month or whatever, some obscene amount. But then Spotify realized the value in that because they're bringing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, tens of millions of people to Spotify, to the platform that will pay for the platform. And I don't do public maths, but if you want to do 100,000 times by whatever this podcast, whatever it costs to pay for Spotify, then you can see that Spotify probably get a really good return on that, even if they're paying Joe Rogan millions of pounds a month or whatever.
That's exactly what this whole episode, is all about, because it should just show you that content creation will attract opportunities and therefore basically at the end of the game, money. And
yes.
The next one is also, everyone knows that one person, and I just don't want to say his name just yet. So building some tension over here.
Let's build the tension.
He started as a paperboy, and he was into art, and he wanted to draw. So back to the point, what's the best way to create content? Well, this young man was into drawing. And in high school,
this was before the internet, right?
That was before the internet. I don't say any time frames yet because then it's becoming obvious. But he was drawing. He was into drawing, and all his friends, his family, he said, this is not really the best thing. Who does that? Nobody does that. There is no money in drawing stuff. And okay, he believed those people, and eventually joined the army. And at the end of the day, he turned out to be the motivator, and he was basically making sure that everyone is kind of happy, even though he was in World War I, I think, or World War II. But he was convinced to just make people feel good because they perform better. And just to break out of this person's life right now and get into the science behind it is the science behind storytelling and the feel of belonging. So when you create content, you can make someone appeal or someone make someone belong to your community. That drives curiosity, and people are hooked with stories. And why are they hooked with stories? Because we humans crave information, and it was back in Stone Age where we had drawings on the rocks because we wanted to teach kids.
We love stories, and
we wanted to learn where we come from. It's always the question of why do we exist and why do we have. So the questions has always been there, and so storytelling is just part of the human nature. The thing is, why only 2% are creating versus 98% are consuming is because storytelling is easy, it's simple, it's creates an emotion of belonging. And there's a link I have also in the show notes from the Mayo Clinic for the health system. And the sense of belonging is usually meant to stay together, because back in Stone Age or back when civilization was not a thing, you had to be in a pack. If you are by yourself, you are end up dying. So you want
safety
always
in numbers.
Yeah, it's just about safety. So you want to have a group that you feel safe, you can trust on, and then you can build up on it.
Exactly. And even though that now we don't have to worry about surviving and being eaten by wolves, we still have that innate behavior in ourselves, and we still want that.
And
fundamentally as humans.
Yes, and that is the reason why we are tending to consume rather than creating. And so going back to Walt Disney, because that's this
that is the person. For those of you that guessed, well done.
Walt Disney, he did that, and he understood that storytelling is the most important thing, but it's also making someone feel being part of something. And so Walt Disney did a great job with creating exactly that. And his vision of Disneyland or Disney World, I think, was the first one.
Disneyland or whatever. Yeah.
He said in an interview, and this is interesting because that blew my mind away, like fully on. He said Disney World or Disneyland, Disney World, and what he's envisioning is a build on creation. So that means they always have to expand or build to expansion or something. He says.
Well, he wanted, so I think that it was something along the lines of to entertain and inspire people around the world through the power of storytelling or something along those lines, right?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, and then he also says it's never an ending. We know that a story always has an ending, but Disney World should never have an ending, which means he always wants to create more theme parks, more side projects onto this thing. And if you look at the map from the first initial launch from the plan to the launch to where it's now, you will understand what he was talking about back in the interview. That was really interesting to put on thing in there.
Yeah, I think the story of Walt Disney and Disney is it's a crazy story, really. And I mean, you have to be living under a rock if you've never heard of Disney. And now you've got Disney Plus as well, which and everything, you know.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how he built something from. And again, look, people were telling him it's not going to work and all this crap, and people will tell you it's not going to work. And but you have to learn who is the right person to listen to.
That just shows that if you are interested in curiosity, then you are able to create. Because once you are asking questions, and you will find right questions to ask, it takes practice, yes, but once you start asking questions, you will get a sense of, okay, what is going on here? Like that's what I can create. So I think that's.
And I think we need to make a point here with curiosity is that we are taught, and look, okay, so I have a podcast called Stuff They Should Have Taught You in School, and maybe I'll do an episode on this, or maybe I have, I don't know. But they say curiosity kills the cat, and that is wrong. You need to get that out your head and chuck it in the bin, because the best thing you can do is be curious and learn and continuously learn. And why wouldn't, I mean, like, look at this world out there. It's crazy. Who could even conceive that this thing actually exists? If you go in and you look outside and you look, okay, you look at a tree and you look at it and you say, okay, it looks like this from the outside. If you go all the way in and you go zoom in and you see atoms and you see mitochondria and so forth, and you keep going in and then you see electrons and whatnot, and you keep going in and you realize that actually everything comes down to waves. And it's just absolutely crazy. And why wouldn't you want to go out and explore the world? Why wouldn't you want to go and realize that the entire world is at your fingertips, essentially, and more so now than ever? I mean, the cost of travel is cheaper than ever. You can go on the internet and you can go and find people from all different walks of life, and you can learn about those things. You can go and learn. Whereas previously, what did you have to do? You had to go and maybe walk or get the boat or get the train. You had to speak to different people all the time. You had to go to the library and search through books and loads of books to find different things and understand it. And really, the best solutions come when you can bring in different areas, or like from places that maybe are not related to the industry that we're looking at.
Yeah, and inspiration is in your pocket. You have a phone that has access to Google. Use that wisely, because there's a lot of information out there. So there should not be an excuse for not getting started or something like that.
And the thing is like, you know, it is easier now than it has ever been before throughout history. However, people may get overwhelmed through, oh my God, there's so much out there. Well, you know what? Just shut up and just start with something small and just do it for like a week, 2 weeks or whatnot. And then move on and do something else, and then move on and do something else. And look, this is going back to the thing before of like, oh, what content do I create? Well, just try something, and then you'll see whether this works before you start to try and put the block out before you've even tried.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with a lot of people in society, is that what they do is that they block, they put a mental block on things by saying I can't, or things like that.
Yeah.
Before they've even tried.
Yeah.
And even in content creation, you can make money just by using the phone that you already have. No monetary input. All it is just time.
Yep.
And that's it. And remember, consistency is key.
Yes, it absolutely is. And now to the last point, and then we gotta wrap this up here because we are passing our 30 minutes here. But if you have really no idea and you really look for an inspiration of what you could do in terms of content creation, I have a link down below. It's a reel from Ryan Pineda, and he's giving you instructions, literally instructions, of what he would do if he would start from scratch, and he would need to create content to make $100 per day via a platform on any social media platform. It's about, just look at the link down below. It's a brief description and instruction of what you need to do in order to make $100 a day. And I've seen it I've seen it in person that people do that or similar, and it's valid. I can verify that. It's definitely possible the way how he explains it, and it's based on logic and patterns, not any fancy guru stuff to sell you a course. This is literally a instruction of how you make $100 a day via social media. So if you want to create content and you want to make money, you definitely want to check this out.
And I think we're ready to wrap this up.
Yes.
And just to finish, I want to, and obviously you can add something else to this if you wish. I want to put emphasis on that it is possible for anyone out there listening. Someone else has done it. You can do it as well. It is possible for you. and don't put yourself in a mental block by saying I can't before you even tried.
Yes, and the perfect quote to this is, the only limitation you have in your life is your mind.